Are y'all ready to rage tonight? I'm not a pretty little picture perfect princess waiting for his charming in a pink dress, damsel in distress on a train track hoping for a knight in shining armor. I'm not a delicate or dainty little flower, timid waiting to be empowered, sitting praying wishing on a star for someone else to make my dreams come true. I'm not your drop that dun dun dun, I'm not your teenage dream, I'm not gonna make it clap for you, but you can clap for me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I'll tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I'll tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I'll tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I'll tell you right now that it ain't me. No, you can't change me, no, rearrange me, no, I can't do whatever I wanna do. I'm not somebody's little lady of the evening, and not your free maid doing the cleaning. And if I'm in the kitchen, it's because I want to be there, and I do it out of love. I'm not your drop that dun dun dun, I'm not your teenage dream. I'm not gonna make it clap for you, but you can clap for me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. Muffin top, nip and tuck, flatter belly, bigger butt, bleach skin, spray tan, salvin on a diet pen, wig weave, perm relax, laser shape, Brazilian wax, overwork, underpaid. What else do I have to say? Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that. Telling me what I'm supposed to be, but I tell you right now that it ain't me. No, you can't change me. No, rearrange me. I can't do whatever I wanna do. My name is Maya Jupiter. Are you having a good time so far? Make some noise for my wonderful musicians, Quetzal, Gonzo, and Dante.
I can go really loud, too. Good evening, I'm Jessica Strand, the Director of Public Programs here at the Library Foundation. Wow, okay. Before we begin tonight's program, in the spirit of reconciliation, after the song, we're gonna do this, the Los Angeles Public Library recognizes and acknowledges the first peoples of this land. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples today. For those not familiar with the Library Foundation of Los Angeles, we are a private, nonprofit organization devoted to fundraising, advocacy, and innovative programming in support of the Los Angeles Public Library. Thank you to the Library Foundation supporters and members who are here with us this evening. If you are not yet a member, I hope you will consider supporting the Library Foundation to continue to see more programs like this one, and to increase critical access to information, resources, and technology to help Angelinos improve their lives around Los Angeles. You can support through joining, oh, where is it? Every time there's a QR code here that should come up, but we have a lot going on this evening. There it is. So you can scan that QR code and become a member. I want to thank some of our sponsors this evening. Errant Fox Schiff, the Suzanne E. Aron, Golden Globes Foundation, Gregory Peck Literary Foundation, the Hearst Foundation, Stephen Judith Krantz Foundation, the Los Angeles, this is a long list, County Department of Arts and Culture, Sharon Osbrow, and Ralph M. Parsons. Okay, Now about ALOUD. ALOUD is expanding its footprint and scope, and we are adding to our already popular author series 3 additional branches, so to speak. The first of which begins tonight with ALOUD in Revue. The idea of Revue programs is to focus on a book or a theme in an unconventional format, meaning more cabaret than conversation. I've noticed these types of programs give the audience a chance to experience the subject from a variety of lenses by having multiple entry points. The idea takes on a larger life, which allows the audience to become engaged on a multitude of levels. Essentially, there's something for everyone. So why Women in Rage as a subject for the first venue? Why not? It struck me as a subject rarely discussed, and when it was, it made people uncomfortable. Why not mine the idea and put it front and center? Why not try to understand the language that's conjured up when women display anger or rage? They are described as hysterical or mad or just plain crazy. Leslie Jameson writes in her piece about female rage for the New York Times Magazine, quote, "The phenomenon of female anger has often been turned against itself. The figure of the angry woman reframed as threat, not the one who has been harmed, but the one bent on harming. She conjures a lineage of threatening archetypes, the harpy with her talons, the witch and her spells, the Medusa with her writhing locks. Tonight, we will explore female rage with a group of impressive female artists from many genres: film, music, fiction, nonfiction, and memoir. Let me introduce tonight's guide through the sea of rage. Kristina Wong is an award-winning performance artist, comedian, and writer who has presented internationally and across North America. She's also been a guest on late-night TV. Her most notable solo works include Wong Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Wong Street Journal, and Kristina Wong for Public Office. Most recently, Wong presented Kristina Wong Sweatshop Overlord at the Kirk Douglas Theater in 2023. She's a recipient of the Doris Duke Award and is a Guggenheim Fellow. Please welcome Kristina Wong.
What makes you mad? What makes you mad?
My student loan.
Your student loan! Ah, this is student loan! What makes you mad? What makes you mad? What makes you mad? Everything! What makes you mad? What makes you mad? Donald Trump! That deserves several. Okay, what else makes you mad? Warren God! This microphone is making me mad. I got to stick in my underpants because it keeps falling. Put it right here. Put it right here. What makes you mad? What makes you mad? You have to give these back to me later. They're for my storage room. Oh, God. Oh, let me hear you. Let me hear that rage. No, too masculine, more feminine. Today's about feminine rage. Like kind of cute, like a character that doesn't really intimidate people because it's in a character. Run! Who's mad? Who is mad? Yeah, you're mad! That's all right. You're mad. I'm mad. We're all mad. We're so full of rage. We're so mad. Yes! That's all right. This is a healing circle suddenly. Sorry, this mic makes me mad. You all make me mad. If you have nothing to be rageful about, we're going to give you things to be mad about tonight. Are you excited about getting mad about other things? Say, If you're a female who's been holding in rage, say, and if you're a male who's been conditioned to have rage and express it because that's what men are supposedly able to do without consequence, let me hear you say, oh yeah, look at you. You're so masculine in your rage. You're like Travis Kelce screaming at the coach during the Super Bowl. But sometimes you want to be like Serena Williams and also scream, is that right? Where is this intro going? I don't know. I'm so blinded with rage right now. I'm at the library. Talking about rage. Ah! What else makes you mad? Come on. Your sister. She makes me mad too. Why does she make you mad? Long story. We don't have time for long stories. We don't have time for long stories. The cost of living is very upsetting. Now, on the count of 3, if you do have a cat, I want you to throw it to someone else. Throw your rage to someone else, because that's what we do. We direct our rage in circles. That's right. That's right. Get mad. You tell people, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm at the library, and I'm so mad right now. And come on. Gotta be pissed off. It is okay to be pissed. It's okay to be a woman and be rageful. Come on. This is completely healthy. Get it out of your system. Get it out. Ah! Get it out. Yes. Yes. Yeah. See? This is like ayahuasca. Except not at the library. It's at the library. You're not gonna poop in a bucket, you're just gonna throw a cat. All right, good. Get it out of your system. Okay, no more cat throwing until I tell you the rest of the show. I'm gonna bring you different things in between, because all this is intense. All this rage stuff is intense, isn't it? All this rage stuff. So I'm here to kind of lighten stuff by telling you to do things in between the performers, the presenters, so you feel less like you're taking the rage home and more that you're absorbing it intellectually, which you should be doing at a library. Okay? All right, are we ready for our first presenter? Yeah. This is Ivy Pochoda. Ivy Pochoda is the author of the critically acclaimed novels Wonder Valley, Visitation Street, These Women, and Sing Her Down. She won the 2018 Strand Critics Award for Best Novel and the Prix America in France, and has been a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize and the Edgar Award, among other awards. Ivy teaches creative writing at Studio 526 in Los Angeles' Skid Row, and is a professor of creative writing at the University of California, Riverside Palm Desert Low Residency MFA program. Please welcome Ivy Pochoda. Thank you.
Okay, that's kind of a hard act to follow. I've given a lot of readings in my life, but yeah. That was some preamble. My novel, Sing Her Down, is about female rage. It's about violent women, and I wanted to write about wanted to explore in the book why we can write violent men in one way and violent women in another way, and what would happen if we wrote about women in the same vocabulary being violent as we do about men. No one is throwing cats. These people are fucking violent. And this scene I'm going to read is set in a prison, and there's a narrator who's not the main character, but she's telling a story of how the two main characters, Dios and Florida, how they got involved in a very bad situation in prison. Her name is Case, and she's telling a story about the main characters. So, no throwing cats, lots of blood. They might have walked out the door, but that's only part of the story. Let me rewind and tell you how this all began. It started on the hottest day of 2019 in early October, when a cough was a fucking cough and not a death sentence and a murder rap rolled into one. It started with the sun so high and fierce the sky was a white blister, the reflection off any metal surface searing your eyeballs. It started with women collapsing in the suffocating indoor heat. Women collapsing in the outdoor furnace, then the lights fading from yellow to brown, the heat lightning tapping in the distance. The never-ending buzz of the high wire fence in the yard got louder, then went erratic, like radio static, louder and louder until it fizzled out. It started with the yard going silent. When we all realized that, it was as if we'd taken off tight shoes, really fucking quiet, scary fucking quiet, Without that buzzing, we'd all stop noticing after one night in this place. Then the air horn and sirens overrode the brownout, driving us inside, everyone cursing as we moved from one heat to another. Worse, the fucking huddled mass of our own bodies suffocating us. We were almost back in our cells, the lights in the prison flickering, fighting the power grid, clinging to life. We were almost locked away, many of us where we were supposed to be. But before our doors locked into place, the brownout went black. The prison went dark. The only light came through our small, smudged, scratched windows. You could hardly call it a light at all. I glanced outside my window. The fence was on fire, blue electric sparks shooting into the sky, the backup generators not coming on. We sat on our bunks. We roamed the tiers where red emergency lighting shone a demonic glow. We could not be contained, our doors frozen where they were when the power died. The COs dressed in riot gear. They marched us back into our places, but they could not keep us there. Next door in Dios and Tina's cell, Tina started to scream. Shut up, shut up, shut up, I said, banging my fist against the wall. Florida put her hand on my back. Shh, Casey Case, shut that bitch up, I told her. There were too many of us, too few of them. Night fell, the heat rose. We cooked in our cells, the stink and sweat of us filling the air. The dark was thick, a thing you could comb your fingers through. There was an hour of uneasy calm, of whispers and waiting. Then the realization that the prison was ours crashed like a tidal wave. It was blacker than black, 100 voices at once, the absence of radio and TV, the storm of boot strikes on the tiers, the banging of metal, the rattling of bars and bed frames. It was one scream and another. It was Tina screaming and me screaming back. It was the whole prison speaking in tongues. It was the taste of blood in the air. It was Dios going from cell to cell, her finger on the prison's rising pulse, the whole while singing her damn narco corridos, singing us down into death and destruction. There was a beatdown happening at the far end. Prisoner on prisoner, CO on prisoner. It was who the fuck knows, all the voices in my head rising, my own victim and the rest of those dropped by my fellow inmates. It was everyone and everything all at once. A siren somewhere, a call for a medic and another. One by one, we started to unravel and unleash. Tina, Florida's old cellie, and Dios's current one ran down the line screaming full bore, tearing off her clothes, calling us murderers. Make that bitch pay, I told Florida. Easy case, she said. Plots hatched all around, schemes, scores to be settled. It was trouble on the come up. Women getting it on in the dark with no one watching, groans of pain and pleasure, the smell of sweat and sex and blood. Women taking back what was rightfully theirs, taking what they wanted would never get otherwise. A gut punch in the dark, a kick in the ribs, crying, sobbing, my own manic laughter, and Florida backing away at the sound. It was me, afraid of the fucking dark and all the voices. Dios's lips suddenly pressed to my ear. You can kill a lady but can't handle the dark, before she vanished back into the chaos. And then I was out of my cell, running and running blind around the prison, getting bumped and bruised, banging into railings, fellow inmates, COs who strong-armed me back to my cell so I could leave again. 8 hours and no one slept. We were all wired by possibility, jacked by threat. We were cooked and cracked. Throughout the night, I heard Tina's voice down the line, banshee scream, curses and accusations. I heard her confessing to crimes she didn't commit. Shut her the fuck up, put that bitch in her place. Everyone else suddenly on my tip, wanting her to quiet down. Rumors of death, brutality, and rape, rumors of more electrical fires, of electrocutions, rumors of the never-ending dark. Dios's eyes glittering in the light of a flashlight, watching a CO thwack a woman with his baton. Dios stepping aside to make room as the woman was carried away. I covered my ears, but there were too many voices inside my head and out. I stared out the window, willing the sun to come up. Florida was gone. 1 minute she was up on her bunk, the next she'd vanished. My goody two-shoes cellie off to join the madness, proving that crazy was contagious. They took over the commissary, they took over the communal room, they smashed the TV. Someone had a hand crank radio. Too many women crammed into her cell, trying to tune into the news of the blackout and the riot. It was fucking hot, hotter than hot, so little air I could feel the oxygen in my brain being wrung out. Tina again, her voice always above the storm. They're leaving us to die. They're leaving us here because we are all killers and we might as well kill one another. Shut up. Speak for yourself. I didn't kill no one. Didn't kill a motherfucker. Shut up. Florida's voice on the line. Shut the fuck up, Tina. Go back to your cell. More guards arrived, more riot gear, more sirens. Women made a stand in the commissary. They raided the supplies. They stole and ate and staked their claim. Dios, watching two women pound a third in the red glow of the emergency lighting, smiling as the blood flew. Gunshots, the electric sting of a taser, so much shouting and crying. There was a beating on the tier below, a body being driven into the metal walkway, a crack of bone. A woman was screaming for a while and then she stopped. For a moment there was silence, then chaos again. A new light outside, not the sun or electricity, but sirens. The prison surrounded, Tina screaming and screaming. No words this time, just sound. Shut the fuck up. That was me again. Shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. I would straight up kill her myself if she didn't stop adding to the madness. A new rumor, more guards, maybe even the National Guard. And quick, get the fuck back to your cell or this riot is going to become a war. More running, a searchlight streaming into the prison, its roving eye probing the dark. Another beating nearby. I felt each punch as if it were landing on my own body. I could feel my breath being knocked free. Tina went quiet, fucking finally. I was back out on the line, walking cell to cell, taking my time before the coming lockdown, because when they got us in, they'd keep us in for a month. The women clustered around the radio scattered, the commissary emptied. The searchlight caught blood smeared along my tier, black streaks of blood, a whole fucking trail, drag marks. The light vanished. In the dark, I followed the blood. I had to. You see, there's this thing with me. I told you earlier. I'm a library of voices. Each victim of those inside these walls comes and lives in my head. I honor the dead. You're dead, her dead. It doesn't fucking matter. I do the thing you forget to do, that you overlook. I care when you forget because I have no choice. I passed Dios and Tina's cell. I passed my cell, past Florida chewing her nails in our doorway, looking at me with some kind of fucked up panic the riot painted on her face. I passed Dios standing with her back pressed to the wall between cells. The searchlight crossed over, hitting the line back behind me, passing Florida, passing Dios, and landing on Tina. In the quick white flicker, I saw her crumpled and stomped, her face plum purple, her eyes fixed, her mouth frozen, final. So fucked up, she was beyond fucked up, beyond recognition, beaten, beyond everything. I covered my mouth and turned back. Dios blocked my path, her arms crossed, her green eyes figuring a way to shine in the dark. You don't even fucking know, she said. You don't know what you don't know. So now you see how it started, and by the time you read this, they're probably gone, Dios in Florida. Turned loose into the big wide world, roaming free, their will, their own, and that should be enough. But you know this isn't where their story ends. You know their road isn't a 5-lane highway to all the happiness they missed in here. Those two couldn't take the easy way if it was marked with a big red fucking X. Marta said they never come back, but bitch doesn't know what she's talking about. She's straight up incorrect. We bring them in here with us, and when we leave them. They are the magnet calling us back. Our dead, I mean. We bring them inside, and we forget them when we go. These women with their early releases, they may be gone, but they're still around, at least in part. They left their demons here, their dead, who haunted them night after night. Maybe you saw Dios in Florida and a few others up and walk out that gate. Maybe you cheered for that shit. Maybe your heart got all fucking big because they had a second chance fast-tracked to them on a silver platter. Problem is, now I'm stuck here with those angry hippies, white girl Florida barbecued in the desert, and I'm here with my second cellie's boyfriend she dropped with his own gun. And I'm here with Tina, Dios's Tina, like I needed Tina on top of the rest. But they all demand to be heard, so I listen. Dios is half right. Don't imagine you're going to be reborn and rehabbed on the outside. Not going to happen. But also, don't imagine you're better than what you did. Don't make Dios's mistake. Don't get all big and proud, high and mighty. Don't imagine your calling to this life is greater than the rest of us, the living or the dead. It will get Dios in the end. Marta told me, and that I believe. I know you all think I'm crazy listening to Marta. You'd find me even crazier if I repeated the words of everyone I'm stuck in here with. Dead husbands, lovers, kids, girlfriends, rivals. The accidental collateral of all your accidents. So I keep on keeping on with Marta, drowning out those other people. So go ahead, ladies. Leave me here to fucking stew in a soup of words. Walk out the door and don't look back. Let me tell you, there's more to ghosts than ghosting, more than haunting. That's what you all don't get, never did. Kill someone, and she becomes part of you. How could it be otherwise? Take her life, and where do you put it? You think you discard it like a weapon or an inconvenient piece of evidence? That's some foolish bullshit. Dios will be back. I already told Tina. They never come back. Fuck that, Marta. They never leave. Thank you.
Ivy Pochoda! Thank you, Ivy. I don't know where to stand where I won't get feedback. So I found, I was looking for things to show you that establish a sort of thing of rage in my life. I don't know, can anyone relate? Did anyone ever have to wear one of these? Where'd you wear yours? Middle school. This was high school for me. I don't know what happened. A lot of rage eating happened. But I used to fit this for 4 years of high school. Anyone else have to relate to this rage? Okay, just you and me. You and me. You know, I went to the last all-girls high school in San Francisco, Mercy High School, and if you go to the Wikipedia page, I am listed as a notable alumni with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, and now the school is closed for lack of enrollment. Ain't that interesting? All right, we ready for our next rage speaker? All right, Susan Straight. Susan Straight. Susan Straight has published 10 books, including the best-selling novels Mecca and Highwire Moon and the memoir In the Country of Women. She's been a finalist for the Kirkus Prize, the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and the National Book Award. You're basically the Susan Lucci of different literary awards. She's been published in thank you, all my children folks, you know this reference. It's a good thing, sort of. She basically never won the Emmy, whatever it was. She's published nearly 200 essays, none with AI, I'm assuming. You wrote them all yourself. 200 essays and short stories in The New Yorker, the LA Times, Granta, The Believer, and elsewhere. She was born in Riverside, California, home of the desert, or something, where she lives with her family. Susan Straight, everybody! Are you gonna read all of your books? All 3 of them? You got a lot of books. This is 3 of the 10 books.
She's talking a lot of smack to me, huh? Because I'm from Riverside. Okay. I was going to read some things, but I actually wanted to start with a question. It's hard to see, too, because of the lights. So I'm going to lean up this way. How many of you guys, because I was thinking about older women, how many of you know an older woman in your life and you thought, this person is never going to be capable of something super rage-filled like what Ivy just read or like what we're thinking? And how many of you have an aunt or a mom or a neighbor or a grandma and you're like, maybe they did do some really, really, really rageful shit in the past? Anybody? Come on, you know better. Let's have a serious, anybody? Well, I am going to talk to you a little bit about that. Mine is a more literal rage because everyone around me is always filled with rage. And you're like, you're from Riverside. That is true. And life has been hard. I brought this book up here just to hold it and look at it, but I'm not going to read from it because I already know those stories. To write a memoir often means you've already heard these stories a million times. True? And you were maybe absorbing them, but you didn't really, really know them until you got grown enough to know what that grandma or that neighbor was really talking about. So I did grow up in Riverside. I lived 3 blocks from where I was born. I got 3 daughters who are like, why are you so mad all the time, Mom? And I'm like, me? I'm not mad. Me? Like, I'm not as mad as Grandma. And they'd be like, oh, that's right, Grandma frickin' hates everyone. My mom is 89. I actually have broken ribs right now from taking care of my mom because she tried to jump out of the car while it was still going. My mom was 4'11" and the meanest person in our neighborhood. And she was from Switzerland. You're like, what? She was mean because she was like Heidi? My mom was like, I grew up Heidi, the bad version. And remember, Heidi was already a terrible story, okay? My mom was so mean that my brother-in-law, who's 6'7" and the straight-up worst gangster in the whole old neighborhood, so calls her Mrs. Watson, and she's like, I almost kicked your ass when you were 7, and I'll do it again if I have to. And he's like, I know, Mrs. Watson, I know. The reason I start with this is because I remember the stories my mom told me, and my mother-in-law told me, and my cousins by marriage, and they were all filled with women who actually had to kill people. I know, you guys are like, wait, what? That's what you guys talk about over a barbecue? It is. In the women's side. I don't know what the men are over there talking about, but on the women's side, yeah, we're talking about death. My mom told me when I was maybe 12, and she was already worried because it was a rough neighborhood. She was worried I was going to get pregnant, and I was 12. She told me a story that when her mom died, and she was 9, her mom's body was laid out on the kitchen table, and she was 9. Her little brothers were like 2 and 4. And my grandfather married the nurse who had helped my mother's mother die. So they came over on a boat from Switzerland because they didn't have any food. My mom actually steals everything right now from everywhere. It's all food-oriented, and everyone makes me feel better. And they're like, oh, mija, my mom steals everything too. Was your mom poor when she was growing up? She didn't have food? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, don't worry, my mom was too. So anyway, my mom was so poor, they didn't have food. They landed in Canada, and she was a farm worker. She lived in a barn, and one day they went to the big city, and they were walking around Lake Ontario, which was frozen. And a woman said, did you come over on the boat? To my mom and her stepmother. And my stepmother hated my mom, and she had tried just then to sell her to a pig farmer, a neighbor. At 15, my mom was supposed to go live with this guy in order for her stepmom to have money. So the woman said, I came over on that boat. My daughter came over on that boat. And out there on the lake is where I threw my grandchild. My mom's telling me the story, I'm 12. I'm like, really? Can I just watch cartoons? No. The young woman had been raped on the boat coming over from Europe to Canada, and she had a baby in the spring. And the grandmother threw the baby into the lake. And every winter, she came to sit and look at the frozen lake and imagine the baby underneath the ice. These are not good stories. But what I took from those stories was how much rage had to have been in that woman. She said, our lives would have been ruined if we let that baby live. That's crazy. So these are the two stories. Those were 2 stories. The other story, which is kind of the basis of this entire book, is how many people in here are writers? There are a lot of writers in here, right? Sometimes when you're working on a memoir or even a short story or an essay, you're looking for that talisman, right? That one thing. I teach that to my students a lot. I have a couple former students here. Like, what's the thing? And so rage is this huge thing that we talked about on Zoom. So all I did last night after we had our meeting was think, but rage is so big. And in my life, rage is so specific. People kill each other over the stupidest shit. Like, I have been to probably 109 funerals. And you're like, how old are you? I'm 63. 109 funerals is a lot of funerals. And people die over like a skateboard. My brother died over a cell phone. So 3 people died over that one cell phone, and it was 2002. That was a shitty phone, wasn't it? It's a really shitty phone. I don't like the phone because it reminds me that my brother died over a phone. So as I'm listening and thinking about what we're doing here, the talisman that came up for this book, In the Country of Women, was the bullet. All the women in my family, my married family, my blood family, their lives were changed by a bullet. So I wanted to tell you the story quickly of Fine. Fine is my father-in-law's grandmother, all right? So when I was growing up, I met my future father-in-law when I was 15. And we were in the driveway. There were 200 of us. It was like Labor Day. If you go to my father-in-law, who's passed away, if you go to the driveway now, all my brothers-in-law, my sisters-in-law still live there. We still always have 200 people for whatever holiday it is. That was my first time. I was wearing a halter dress. It was 1976. So I was 15. I had platform shoes I had borrowed from my neighbor. And they told me the story of Fine. Fine was born to a woman who had just been a slave outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I found out later it was in McMinnville. It took me 10 years to write the memoir and to do the research. Fine's mother died when she was 5. She was the youngest of 6 kids, and all the kids at this time, it was 1870, all the kids were put in a barn, and local white people could come and just pick up a kid. And the way she told it to my father-in-law, her grandson, they picked us out like puppies, and I got a bad owner. Well, Fine was 5, and she was taken on a wagon to live with an older white woman who had her own family and a big house, and Fine had to chop all their wood. She had to do everything. She had no shoes, and that's the little tiny part that I want to read you from this. Her name wasn't Fine. They called her Fine simply because she looked fine and healthy. She never saw her family after she was 5. She had cheekbones like ledges of slate under her eyes. She had black hair, thick and long. She wanted shoes. Every day she wore rags, she chopped wood, brought water from the well, and still the old white women beat her as if beatings were the old woman's work, the schedule and imprint of her former life. Maybe she had beaten children all her life, or maybe she chose to beat this one child who would not be subdued. Fine had no shoes, no clothes, no nothing. She was in tatters. You know that word, right? Tatters. She was hungry, but inside, this is what my father-in-law said, she was so angry. She was skin and bone, but she was a furious whirl of anger. One day, in the woods, she found a glint of metal on the ground. It was a bullet. All those bullets, balls of lead aimed at the heads of soldiers on both sides. The forest was littered with bullets and even unburied bodies. Fine put the bullet into the pocket of her apron. It was her talisman. By then, she was about 11 years old, and in her mind, having not a single human to help her, she was capable of murder. She didn't know anything about gunpowder or firing pins. She only knew that people died from bullets. She thought it was the weapon all by itself, and with great care, she hid it away for just the right moment. One day, chopping wood for the family stoves, the old woman came out to watch her, and for whatever reason, this is my father-in-law's words, Grandma told her, "These wood chips are flying, and you're liable to get hit." The old woman told her to shut up and get to work. Soon, the opportune moment came. When the old woman was looking away, Grandma took the bullet out of her apron pocket, and with all her might, she threw it at the old woman's head. According to my father-in-law and all his brothers, the bullet landed flush on the temple, and Fine heard a blood-curdling scream. The rest of the family all came out. Grandma said, "I told her to watch out for wood chips," but nothing else happened. The old woman didn't die. How can it be, she wondered. I know it hit her, and I wanted her dead. I thought I would read you that part because I started out by saying, what if it's an older woman? What if it's an older woman who, by the time I imagine her telling these stories, and she was very brave still, she wanted that person dead, like dead. She had a daughter, Fine, at 13, on the side of the road, having run away, finally, and met a guy while she was picking blackberries in order to buy shoes. Sorry, I can't see your faces, so I hope you're not bored. No, can't see anything. This one's hard, too, because this is another one of those, I can't look it up for you and tell you if it happened. It's the stories that are told, and that's why I wrote the book. How many of us, sorry, I'm not trying to exclude the guys, but women will only tell certain stories to other women. True? Yes? Okay, so these are the stories, like I said, I hear on the women's side of the driveway. Fine's daughter was named Jenny. Fine had Jenny when she was 13, and then Fine had 2 more kids. Fine had gone to Denton, Texas, and married a man that was so violent and so bad that he beat her son to death, and he poisoned her other son. And Fine couldn't do anything because she had a baby girl, and that baby girl was Callie. So Callie's a baby. Jenny, her oldest daughter, is now 13. Jenny leaves, same age, and she makes her way to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Aunt Jenny, who I met when she lived not far from here, she had bought a house on 22nd and Central, so very close to where we are right now. When Jenny was 16, she had nothing to sell but her body. She made it to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and she worked in a brothel. She worked in the back house, which was for black men. It was a small wooden shack. In the front house was a big white house, according to Jenny's, she never got to have kids because of what had happened to her, but according to all of our cousins that Jenny raised. The lady in the front house served white men, and Jenny served black men, until one night, and Jenny's 16, a white man who was drunk came back and raped Jenny. And Jenny had a gun, but she didn't have it close enough. It was on top of the fireplace. When the man turned around, Jenny grabbed the gun, and when he turned back to her, she shot him between the eyes, right there. Can I prove this? Is there a piece about it in the paper? No. Because what happened is, Jenny's a black woman. It's 1910 in Oklahoma. What would happen to her if she was caught? She would have been hung. Actually, that's the way, again, I'm 15, and they're like, Jenny would have hung, right? She would have been lynched. She ran up to the front house. Her best friend, the white woman, came to the back house, and together they dragged the man to the front house. He was white, obscured the tracks from his dragging, and her best friend called one of the most famous patrons of this brothel just outside of Tulsa, which was the sheriff. And they said, we don't know what happened to this guy. Somebody must have shot him. Maybe he owed someone money. And the sheriff took the body, and no one ever saw it again. Now you're like, that's a crazy story to tell. I met Aunt Jenny when I was 19, about to get married to her great-nephew, and she was 81 years old. She was sitting at Uncle John's house, 63rd and Crenshaw. It was 4th of July. I met her. I kissed her cheek. It was as soft as cake flour. You know, those older lady cheeks, right, with powder on them. She had killed a man. She had to. That's why I wanted to start. I grew up hearing those kind of stories. So I was going to read you from this book, but instead, after we had our meeting last night, I remembered, and yes, I'm done, right? Okay, so I was just going to say, I realized that I started this book when I was 19. Now again, how many of you guys are writing in here? All right. So I wanted to end by saying I ended up getting this book out last night. When I was 19, I worked at a gas station in Riverside. I worked swing shift. I thought I was going to die every single day because we got robbed so often. And I rode at night in my little Honda. I drove to St. Catherine's Church, which was funny that she brought the skirt out, right? I drove to the parking lot, and I drove near the statue of St. Catherine. And I wrote my very first short story, which was about a woman who shot a man between the eyes, and it was to save her son. And so I wanted to say to you, the whole thing about rage being literal is that literal goes together with legendary, true. And those of us who are trying to make art out of this notion of what it takes to survive, I think it really all comes from women telling each other the truth and how we shape it into something that's a legend. Thanks.
Susan Straight. Thank you, Susan. That was really dark, Susan. I don't know how to follow up. I did check, though, that Susan Lucci was not on Days of Our Lives. She was on All My Children, ironic. It's the same thing. The soap operas are the same thing. Also, Riverside, not just the home of deserts, but also where you stop to use the restroom on the way to Vegas. Great. Oh, I'm killing it tonight at this free show. Yes. Yes, from Riverside. That's what I like to do. I just like to insult everybody in the audience from Riverside. But, I found another prop that enlists rage. The gavel. How about that Supreme Court? Is anyone happy with that Supreme Court? Nothing says justice like the fuck it method of making decisions, right? Okay, all right, you ready for some music? Some music. Yeah. Look at some music. Yeah, you just go ahead and get stabbed. All right, I'm going to read Maya Jupiter's. Bye, everybody. Maya Jupiter was born in La Paz, Mexico. She grew up in Sydney, Australia, and is now located in Los Angeles. Her love of hip-hop led her to the world of radio and TV, becoming a music TV host and producer. Her latest album, Never Said Yes, is available here tonight. Please give it up for Maya Jupiter.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been thinking about rage and what it means to me and in terms of my art, which is creating hip-hop music. And I think, for me, I'm the type of writer that has to write. I have to use the writing as my own therapy, right? As my journal. That's how it started when I was 14 years old. How do I process all these feelings and emotions? I write it down. Middle of the night, wake up and write. And with so much going on in the world, I find myself angry a lot and upset and frustrated and all the things. And the only channel that I have is to really put it through the music. And I think, we all have a purpose and we all have something to give to the movement and to our communities. And I think the best lane for me has always been through the music. I can contribute to my community through my music. And that's what, these collection of songs that you're hearing tonight, that's what they're about. Is really just me reacting and processing and thinking and trying to add my voice and help advocate for change. Just taking a breath over that. So much going on. When I released my last album, Never Said Yes, produced by Quetzal Flores right here, my mom said to me, you should write some happy songs too. I said, I'm gonna try, Mom, I'm gonna try. This one is not that. Never Said Yes is a song about affirmative consent. I wrote it after I watched a documentary called The Hunting Ground, which was about the rape crisis epidemic right here in the United States. I've done a lot of advocacy work to really bring light about sexual violence, domestic violence, physical assault. And what we found is that the percentages, 1 in 5 women will be sexually abused and 1 in 3 will be physically abused. The numbers for males, we don't know as much because men don't report as much as women do because of the stigma. But they're the same in Australia, they're the same here, and I wonder why that is. It must be a cultural thing. So Never Said Yes is about turning the no means no on its head. No means no really focuses on the survivor having to tell their truth, having to prove what happened to them. Never Said Yes puts the onus on, making the perpetrator prove that they did get consent, right? So I don't need to say no, because I never said yes. I never gave consent. Let's find out first if consent was even given. So, are you down with that? Okay, well that's good, because I'm gonna need your help. There's a part where it goes, I don't need to say no, because I never said yes, and you're gonna go, no, 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 no. We're gonna practice. Can you do that for me? You're all my backing vocalists here tonight. Are you ready? I don't need to say no, because I never said yes. Yes, very good. I know, it's kind of weird, isn't it? I'm saying yes, and then we're saying no, but it doesn't matter. Let's do it. Here we go. Feel free to stand up if you want to, or just nod your head. Systematic cover-ups, naive sitting ducks. Presidents have run amok. Presidents don't give a fuck. Dollar is the king again for profit over people, and it's women versus men again. I'm picking up my pen again. Rape culture everywhere. Blame the victim, they don't care. But we survive, won't disappear. We will thrive, and we are here. Let me make it clear. Gotta get my consent. I don't need to say no, because I never said yes. call me a liar, you will not blame me. You will hear what I have to say and prosecute them fairly. Punish those responsible and educate the rest. Stand with survivors and show some respect. Do you understand? Am I making it clear? No one should ever have to live in trauma or fear. I'm sick of this shit, man, you're making me stressed. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. Say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. No, 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 no. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. No, 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 no. I will not be objective, I will not stay silent. I demand to live a life that is free of violence. My dress is not a yes, no matter how tight it fits. There is no excuse and I never asked for it. Wanting by is too high and unacceptable. We got the power, this is all preventable. What you gonna do? Better stare with me and say, rape culture ends and it all ends today. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. Say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. I don't need to say no, cause I never said yes. No, 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 no. Woo! What's up, Pochoda? Graciosa in the bed. Got that? Make some noise. Rape culture ends and it all ends today.
Yeah, Jupiter! Woo! Rocking out at the library, are we not? Yes! As I was trying to think of a prop to introduce the next artist who is presenting, I read a BBC article about rage, you know, because I like to prepare for these things, and vagina dentata is this thing where there'd be teeth. And so this was like an old strap-on that I used to wear under a skirt and pull things out of it. And that was what most of my early performance art career was this right here. And then I moved on to content. Some content with a little more meaning. All right, we're ready to meet Nina Menkes. We're ready to meet Nina Menkes. I'm going to introduce Nina. Nina Menkes is a cinematic pioneer and independent filmmaker. Her award-winning feature films have been shown widely at major international film fests that include Sundance, the Berlinale, and Cannes. Described as a cinematic sorceress in the New York Times, she is a Guggenheim, I'm a Guggenheim fellow too, and make this about me, a Fulbright fellow, and is a directing member of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. That means that those for-your consideration billboards are for you, Nina. Her early films have been restored by the Academy with Scorsese's Film Foundation, and her radical feature set in Las Vegas, Queen of Diamonds, was selected for the National Film Registry at the Library of Congress in 2023. Please welcome filmmaker Nina Menkes. Nina.
We're actually going to show a clip first.
Hey, listen. Lights down, please.
that's sort of an excerpt of the actual clip, which is longer. For time purposes, we shortened it. It's one of 9 sex scenes that were part of my film Magdalena Viraga that I made in 1986 as a student at the UCLA Film School. It was my first feature film, and it was made for $5,000 on 16 millimeter. And it's about a sex worker who's extremely alienated and extremely angry. And when I showed the film at UCLA, it caused quite an uproar, and there was one young guy who stood up in the audience, and he was young. Well, I was young too, but he was like an undergrad. And he stood up and he said, "This is the most violent film I've ever seen in my life. You do things that even Brian De Palma doesn't do." And that comment really blew my mind, and I never forgot it, because there's no blood and, shooting in this film. But the image of an angry, alienated woman within a sexual context was so violent to this person, to his worldview, to his concept of what it means to be a woman and what it means to show sex on screen, because this is 1986. And I guess I was really angry already then. And of course, I'm still angry now. And my journey of filmmaking, I make fictional films like this one and many others. And but my most recent film, which came out last year, is actually a documentary called Brainwashed Sex Camera Power. And Brainwashed took clips from 175 A-list films. A-list means the ones that win Cannes and the Academy Awards, the ones that everyone looks up to, the gods of cinema, Sofia Coppola, Martin Scorsese, folks like that. And it points out how the visual language of cinema, shot design itself, the way the camera moves, the way lighting is structured, the way the shots are framed, contributes to the diminishment of power for women, and colludes and collaborates with the twin epidemics of sexual assault, sexual abuse, and employment discrimination against women, which is horrendous in the film industry. It's a problem everywhere. It's a problem in the film industry that's off the scale. And so I thought sort of might be interesting to track that journey from that first film in 1986 to 2022, when I talk about these things as part of an entire systemic issue that we're still embroiled in, and we see it today in the films that are nominated. Oppenheimer is probably going to win Best Picture and Best Director. It's a lot of problems with that film, but just to stay on the point of this, I walked out after we had been watching this white guy be a brilliant genius for half an hour. We finally got a woman character, and then we saw her naked having sex. So let's watch the trailer for Brainwashed Sex Camera Power, and if you want to see the whole film, all my films are on Canopy. Thank you, the library. God bless, and we'll talk more about it in the Q&A.
The male gaze is definitely normalized in our society.
Almost all of us are familiar with the phrase, the objectification of women. What exactly is an object and what is a subject?
It's the stuff that I think you thought, and maybe I thought, well, everybody knows this. It's in the ether. And so to name it and to show it is something that I believe can change the world.
I personally see a very clear connection between this visual language of cinema, employment discrimination against women.
It's a visual medium, Kayla.
And an environment of pervasive sexual harassment, abuse, and assault.
In a visual culture such as ours, if the camera is predatory, then the culture is predatory as well.
This is the power of storytelling on the screen.
Women actors are often shot with fragmented body parts. Another thing that's very common is a female body on direct display for the audience without a specific person looking.
There's a saying that if people were to get rid of all the sexual predators, that there would be no film industry.
This cinematic visual language can really feel like the bedrock language of rape culture.
As Audre Lorde said, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house.
Available on Canopy to watch. Amazon, Apple, if you pay for it, it makes its way back to Nina. Canopy, not so much, but we still love Canopy. Oh, I found another prop, that like the instant rage maker. Everything, if a woman puts herself behind this, she's instantly angry. Look, what kind of contour pencil are you using? What would you like to eat tonight, honey, for dinner? I'm cooking, as I always do. I enjoy being a girl. So, anyway, instant rage maker right here. Are you ready for our final artist presenting? I know you are. Final rage. Can you take? You can take some more rage. Yes, you can. Because she's come all the way from DC to be here today. Yes! Soraya Chemaly is a prolific writer and cultural critic, nationally recognized as a feminist thinker, speaker, and activist, dedicated to bringing intersectional feminist thought, theory, and activism into popular mainstream. She is a freelance writer, a contributor to several anthologies, and the author of Rage Becomes Her, also sort of the name of our program. The Power of Women's Anger and the upcoming The Resilience Myth. Please welcome Soraya Chemaly. Please welcome her. Welcome her. You better welcome her. Welcome her. Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm so excited. When we talked about doing this program, since I was the last one up, we thought it would be a good idea to sort of think about the themes that we've heard tonight. And what was so striking to me were really two things. One is we really have this idea of anger and violence, and anger and death, and anger and rage. And that, to me, comes from a very masculine model of expression. If you Google anger or anger management, you get a bunch of pictures of white guys breaking things and screaming. That's the image of anger. And so I think that when I came to this topic, it wasn't because I had experienced anger that way, and it wasn't because the women that I write about, and I'm a nonfiction writer, were expressing anger that way. It was because in women, anger looks like this. Right? Like, you could be angry and happy and look exactly the same way. And anger management for women actually means expressing the anger, not trying to contain the anger. And that became really evident to me in the last election. I write a lot about sexual violence and its effects on girls and women and children and boys and men. And the election came to a head just before Me Too. And in my mind, it's all one long thread of anger, populist anger in politics, and the anger of women's private lives being pushed down, excuse me, until it could no longer be pushed down. And so we saw this explosive rage of Me Too. And that rage that came out was the rage of knowledge, the knowledge that many people on a stage tonight talked about, which is usually kept sequestered in women's lives. So the knowledge of sexual threat, the knowledge of what violence looks like if it's not people of equal size punching each other, right? But when it's predatory and when you're smaller and, excuse me. So it seemed to me that we had tonight people talking about this sort of masculine model and how women in our own lives manage it. So I too wrote about my mother, my grandmother, my daughters, because I thought, how do we learn this in the culture? Excuse me. How are we taught to think, thank you so much, to think of anger as something that's not ours, and that it makes us unappealing or unattractive or ugly, which is the cardinal sin in our culture, right? You can't do that because you're going to alienate men. And the access that women tend to have to power is vicarious through men, and so you can't be that person. So I thought, what's that model? What is it for women? Excuse me.
Please come close to the mic so people online can't hear you.
Sorry, thank you. How is it that we express ourselves when we're angry? And how we express ourselves actually is by being very tired, by being very sick, by not actually being able to be true to ourselves. Which gets me to the second point, which is narrative structure. All of us structure stories, and all of us think about how to express ideas. Oh, excuse me. I know. And so one of the striking things to me about the film clips that we saw was that what Nina is describing is the way we shape those ideas. And so I want to share a personal story from childhood, because Susan was talking about her childhood ideas, and I also write about those. And the story in my family, we have a fairy tale about my great-grandmother. When she was 14, she was in her town, her village, in what is now Jordan, but it wasn't Jordan then. And she was walking, and a handsome young man on a horse came by, and he picked her up and rode away with her into the sunset. And they got married, and they had 7 children, and they moved across the earth, literally. And they had this wonderful group of children and their family, and lived happily ever after. And wasn't that a lovely story? And the first time I heard it, it really did sound like a princess story, because here was this beautiful girl, here was this handsome man, here was this family, we're all sitting there 60, 80 years later, and I thought, well, that's really great. The second time I heard it, I was 11, and by then, I had already been threatened with rape in a schoolyard. I had been street harassed for 2 years already. And none of this, I hadn't told anybody this because it was normal. It happened to my mother, it happened to my grandmother, it happened to my aunts. I figured the men knew because it was so obvious. It never occurred to me to say, do you know this is happening? So when they heard the story this time, I said to my large family, well, it just sounds to me like she was kidnapped and raped, which is not great at the dinner table. And it's really not great when the rapist is your great-grandfather, who everyone loves. And I thought, okay, well, what's happening here? Because no one wants me to say this. I can tell they don't want me to say it, but it seems pretty clear to me. And so nobody really answered that question, but it sat with me, and it sits with me still. Because in fact, it was just a kind of washing away of the sins. And 50 years later, she ended up catatonic, a very sick woman. She was diagnosed with so many different things, but nobody really asked whether she was just severely traumatized by her life. He, meanwhile, was popular and happy and loved, and there was just no question about this history in this family. And that's how our stories are told to us. That's how stories of anger are told. That's how stories of sexual violence are told. And we don't necessarily question them because it's hard to question them. And in fact, because of the way we're socialized as children, we as girls are supposed to be other-focused. We're supposed to put others first. We're supposed to please. We're supposed to be polite. So even now in schools, girls are 3 times more likely to be told to use polite voices, to not use dominant speech patterns. Don't interrupt, don't joke, don't disrupt. Boys, on the other hand, while they may have access to anger as the dominant form of emotional expression, and not, for example, sadness or fear or anxiety, they can do those things. And they can do those things as paths to power or leadership in those environments and beyond. Girls, however, really learn that to be angry is going to break relationships, and we're the keepers of relationships. But in fact, anger is very isolating, and it's probably the most social emotion, because you're actually saying, I need something. Something's wrong. I have to fix something. But in fact, you learn pretty early that you're not supposed to center yourself as a girl. And so you lose that. And the question that I wanted to ask in my book was, what happens when we sever anger from femininity in the political life of the country, in the culture, not just for us as individuals, but when you actually say, it doesn't matter what happens to women. It doesn't matter how they feel about it, and it doesn't matter how they express it, because we don't care enough to say, what do you need? Which makes me angry today, right? We understand the problem today. And so all of that came around to this election in 2016, in which there was all of this anger, but only certain candidates could leverage the populist anger, and those candidates were not women. So Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders could both stomp their feet and get red in the face and look like mad scientists if they wanted to, but they could tap in. Everywhere was something that I watched women politicians be unable to really. I'll just hold it. Okay, thank you. But anyway, so women couldn't do that in the same way, and I thought, well, what does that mean? What does it mean for all of us, right? And so in my book, I write a lot about that, about the politics, but also as a writer, and I'm sure other writers have experienced that too, there's just so much anger online. And so I wanted to say, what happens when you silence women? What happens when the anger and the backlash results in something like Taylor Swift deep fakes, right? Those deep fakes are now something that every girl anywhere knows can happen to her, right? They happened to AOC for the last 6 years, really. If it wasn't deep fakes, it was something like deep fakes. We see it over and over and over again. And so the question is, yes, we understand personally what anger might mean and how it might affect us, but the real question to me is, what does that look like culturally? And so I'm going to sort of lean on Susan's story and think of my mother and grandmother and close with something, because for me, anger was so negative always. And I realized, why is that? I have every right to be angry. It doesn't make me a bad person, a selfish person. But also, like Susan, if you'd said to me, are you angry? As a younger woman, I would have said, who, me? No, absolutely not. And it wasn't until I really realized I was getting sick because I just couldn't understand what was happening that I thought, oh, you know, I think I'm angry. So I want to finish with this because I think it will make sense to you when I'm done. When my grandmother died, her face was deeply etched with lines, but she was beautiful and her smile was dazzling. While I miss her presence, I can't find it in myself to be sad. Instead, I think of what it took for her to survive intact for a century, living in countries rent with violence and in a family, like most in the world, dedicated to men's rule. As a child, in my mind, she and my mother swirled around one another in sharp contrast. Anger was manifest in both of them, but so differently. In one, it was expressed and disdained, and in the other, repressed and damaging. Either way, the lesson could have been the standard one, that anger in a woman is overwhelmingly negative. But this always struck me as wrong, uncomfortable. Their anger was not the problem. A lack of care and understanding about what drove them to anger was the problem. After my grandmother died, in an effort to unlearn all of the negative lessons I had absorbed about being a woman and having anger, I wrote down everything positive that I could imagine, anger to be. Anger is a boundary, an assertion of rights and worth. It is communication, equality and knowledge. It is intimacy, acceptance, fearlessness, embodiment, revolt, and reconciliation. Anger is memory and rage. It is rational thought and irrational pain. It is instrumental, thoughtful, complicated, and resolved. Anger is freedom, independence, expansiveness, and entitlement. It is justice, passion, clarity, knowledge, and motivation. It is the demand for accountability, evaluation, judgment, and refutation. Anger is reflective, visionary, and participatory. It is social, it is a speech act, a statement, an intention, and a purpose. It is a risk and a threat, a confirmation and a wish. It is both powerlessness and power, palliative and provocation. In anger, you will find ferocity and comfort, vulnerability and hurt. In anger, whether you like it or not, there is truth. If it is a poison, it is also the antidote. How much anger is too much? Certainly not the anger that for many of us is a remembering of a self that we learn to hide and quiet. This self craves survival, liberation, creativity, urgency, and vibrancy. The women I admire most have all found ways to sublimate and transform their anger into meaningful change. In them, anger has moved from debilitation to liberation. The anger we have as women is an act of radical imagination, the expression of hope. It is a gift you give yourself and the world that you claim as yours. And I apologize for my shaky voice.
Thank you. Thank you, Soraya. You must share your casserole recipe with me. Tiffany, do we still have time for the Q&A? Or should we? Okay, great. So we're going to So you've all been pondering thoughts of rage and been stewing in thoughts of rage. And I have three. Look at me. I'm so masculine with all this amplification. I'm so masculine. So, put me on the field, coach. Give me beer. So we're going to do a little Q&A, and with everyone here, give it up for them with your most rageful applause.
Look, they're carrying their own chairs. They're not throwing the chairs as they could in the context of rage. But great. I thought one good question we could start us off with is, what is it in writing and thinking and performing so much about rage, what does it do for you personally? Does it amplify that rage, quell it? I'd love to know. Yeah.
I throw darts every Wednesday and Sunday, and the bullseye is all those men. There's only 4 of us women, and there's 20 men. I'm always the best out there. So many different men I can picture in the bullseye.
But you've directed just to the bullseye. You're not doing circumcision or anything.
The men who play darts know why I'm throwing that way. They don't get in the way.
Anyone else?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I wrote this book, as I said in the introduction, about trying to examine why we allow men to be violent and we don't allow women to be violent, and I thought this would be cathartic, but then it was perceived as incredibly violent, and that opens another door. So every time I write about something, I'm not like an angry person. Like most people who know me are a little confused about the nature of my fiction, but like every time I write about something that a woman is doing that is expressing anger, and I think it's gonna be cathartic, it opens up another tunnel. So the book wasn't, you know, received in it did what I wanted it to do. It alienated people, it made people think, but then the reaction was what I expected. People are like, well, women aren't like that and they shouldn't be like that, so that makes me even more angry. So like, it's like this never-ending tunnel. When you start to address an anger, the reaction to that sort of opens up another sort of rabbit hole to go down, and sort of, you think you're getting out of the issue, but you're actually digging yourself deeper because it's super pervasive. And I just realized there's so many more avenues to explore that, you know, I don't know if I want to be the angry writer my whole life, because I seem to be a nice, fun person, but it isn't like I wake up and like, phew, thank God I did that, and like I got it out. It's like, no, it gets worse and it compounds with every day.
I found them, sorry, did I cut you off? Go away. I was going to say, I found that my rage got more when I became a mother. I think it became more urgent, and it just felt, more rageful, all the things, because not only are you dealing with it, but now you have to teach your children about it, and watch their little hearts break when they find out some really terrible truths about this world, you know, and then we have to work towards. And that's why we're here, so we can make a positive difference.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, because in thinking about my own work, I think there's sort of two different kinds of work that I've done, and the way that rage manifests and its results are really different. So, like, I had the exact same experience that you did with the film Brainwashed. Like, you know, on the one hand, a lot of people were really grateful for the film and appreciated it, but it was also very strongly attacked for absurd reasons, you know, that were just like, you feel like you're on LSD, you know. So it sort of is like what you said, like, you know, yes, but then are you deeper in it? Are you like, or was, you know, did you climb out of the hole? I don't know. But on the other hand, like the fictional work that I've done, I always feel like it more transmutes it. It transmutes it into something that's actually like spiritual energy that releases. So those, for me personally, I've had those two kind of very different reactions. Whether there's a sort of more an intellectual, you know, the analytical side does not seem to transmute.
Yeah, can I just add one thing to that? Sure. I think that what was really striking to me was that I also just didn't think of myself as an angry person. I felt angry, but when I would write, I excessively tried, firstborn Catholic girl, to seem filled, like, knowledgeable and analytical, and I had lots of research, and my approach was, don't argue with me, go argue with the CDC. Like, I just am not gonna engage in this way. But it didn't matter what I said, because whatever I said, I could have said, as I did, it's okay if boys wear pink socks. And literally the next morning, I'd get rape threats or violent pornography. And so I was like, well, I'm not saying things about anger, I'm not being particularly angry, but just walking into a room as a feminist immediately makes me an angry person who's disagreeable, right? Because that's all it takes to be that person. And so I thought, well, what is this anger? What is this violent response to people saying, maybe we shouldn't have rape? Like, maybe that would be nice for everybody if that were not a thing that was just acceptable in the culture. But that made people so angry. And then we had a predatory, sexually abusive guy become president. And even that didn't seem to matter. And that was just outrageous. So the anger, the writing for me has always also been a sublimation.
We have time for a couple questions in the audience. If we don't get to all the questions, their books are for sale and they'll be signing them in the lobby, so you can get your questions in there. But we'll take a couple questions.
Hi. Oh, that's loud. I'm the director of something called the Bob Avakian Institute and became a revolutionary communist because I was a furious teenager. And I wanted to ask you guys to speak to the fact that on the one hand, we're facing a tremendous revenge against women, and the oppression of women is stitched into the seams around which this whole society is being ripped apart with a fascist takeover to enslave and subordinate women as breeders and incubators on the way to take away the right to birth control and abortion gone. On the one hand, that, and the extreme danger of that. And on the other hand, the revolution I'm part of has one of its slogans, unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution. And I wanted to ask you all to speak to that and how you see the situation we're in. And I would pose the challenge not to have more female faces on the top of a patriarchal capitalist system, but to get rid of it and uproot the patriarchal oppression of women here and all over the world. So it's an invitation to come talk, but also how you see this situation of the sharpening divide with that, as I said, the oppression of women stitched into all that.
You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, you know, I've been reading a lot of Native American, that's the wrong phrase, indigenous people, Native peoples' philosophy, and, you know, this idea, you know, this like the whole orientation of plunder and, you know, competition and the divide of wealth and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I have no idea. I don't have any idea what we're gonna do. You know, sometimes, especially when you think about, you know, the feminist struggle, like, you know, there's so much a sense of like we reinvent the wheel again and 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 again. And now again, abortion. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I mean, that's not an answer, but I agree with you. And you know, putting capitalistic, creepy women at the top is not going to solve anything.
It just seems that, you know, exactly what you said, the replacing bad men with capitalist women is not just, it's figureheads, but, you know, in terms of being a novelist, which is the only thing I can speak to, and I'm a mom, and, you know, it just seems that we need our own vocabulary for our anger and our rage and our, you know, struggle. And a lot of times the vocabulary I use in my writing is turned against me because it's masculine. You know, if you look back at, okay, I'm gonna nerd out here. If you look back at like Shakespeare or like classical drama, when a woman is bad, the language they use is anti-maternalistic. You know, like Lady Macbeth is always talked about as ripping a baby from her breast, and she didn't have kids, so it's weird. And like, you know, when Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon, like all the phraseology is very much like, you know, like fruit of the fruits and maternal stuff. And I think that is actually still current in fiction. And, you know, the words that we use are sort of turned against us. We don't have, and I don't know what the solution is, but I think we are too much playing by the rules that have been set, and that it's a trap, you know. And, you know, it's hard because you want to, it's like we have to rip the system down to start over from scratch, and like that just hasn't happened yet. Or if it does, it doesn't get heard because it's so radical. You know, it's like it's like you're starting from a completely different system which is not acknowledged. And I think, you know, it's a bind, because in order to be heard, we have to use the words that are given to us and the formats and the, you know, frameworks, but those are the ones that have been constructed for us by you know, a patriarchy. And it's really even have to go deeper to really begin to fix this problem, which you are quite right to address. And I don't think any of us up here are like gonna fix it tonight or anything, but, you know, but thank you.
I gotta go at this slantways, because the way you asked it wasn't really a question. So what I'm saying is, I'm only good at what I do. I wanted to say, I remember, I've driven all over California. I've been everywhere. I've been to every county in California. The first book I wrote, the one I held up that I started when I was 19, there's a woman in there who crosses the border from Oaxaca, and she ends up in a place like San Bernardino, and then she's deported, She has a daughter. Her daughter grows up in foster care, and she's making her way back over the border. And you guys are like, oh, when did this happen? I started this book when I was 19. I mean, there were people being deported from my neighborhood. I lived right by the orange groves. So when we were walking to school, we would hide in the ditch while people got taken away. I'm telling you this because the only thing I can do as a writer is to reach out to all of the women. And so I remember going on this big trip, and I went to Greenfield. So Greenfield, California, does anybody know where Greenfield is? All right, thank you. I went to Greenfield, which is the capital of the lettuce, and I spoke to migrant families in a kindergarten auditorium in Greenfield on a Thursday night. 300 people showed up, and we had a Oaxacan interpreter because part of the book is in Mixtec. And I had a grant from California Humanities, and we gave away 100 books, and I signed books for everyone, and all these women came up to me, and they were crying, and they were telling me, my aunt wants you to know that that's what happened to her when she crossed the border, because the woman who crosses the border is raped, and she has to kill someone. All of these women were crying. All I can say is, if we're telling stories, and we're playing music, and we're doing all those things, just as camaraderie, no. But all of those things that we do for our students, I have young women who are here who are my students, that kind of strength, yeah, I can help with. But that's just narrative. I can't give you anything else but narrative, right? That's my job. That's all.
And we had one second question.
Yeah, one more question.
And then we can take the other questions in the lobby in the back.
I just want to say all of you ladies are amazing. I mean, even you, the comedian.
Even me.
You ladies are
I know, the bar
amazing.
is low, but even me, I'm okay. I'm okay.
You're amazing. I mean, it's just, I'm just like floored. I appreciate you so much because what's going on with a lot of women, people just don't acknowledge it. Nobody knows, like 100 million women all over the world are missing and no one blinks an eye, but only 500,000 men are missing every year. I mean, nobody cares about that. But I mean, it's something that women are affected every day, and I love men, trust me, and I don't want men to be isolated because women are expressing themselves how we feel. We want men to understand how we feel. If you're not understanding how we are feeling and verbalizing, then we're not gonna be able to make a change. And I was thinking back because it was a documentary on women back in the 1930s, I believe, when they started voting. And they was going through this whole thing, it was on PBS, and they were trying to get the votes in the men. And you know what happened? Years and years, nothing happened. And all of a sudden, the lady she got a click. She said, I'm gonna start my husband. And she started with her husband, who went and told his friends, oh, let's let the ladies vote, come on. And that's how it got started. They marched everywhere. Nothing took effect. And it took that one little thing for her husband to understand how she felt. And if men don't understand how women feel, how a lot of women are being assaulted, mistreated, just totally everywhere. I was in San Diego like last year, and this guy was giving me a free phone, and he said, what are you women worried about? Y'all can vote now, what's your problem? And I said, you think that's the only problem women have? Wow, this is 2023? Are you kidding me? So, I mean, these are things that women go through all the time, and it's not, we want men to march with us in the Me Too movement, and for women not to feel like, oh, we're in this alone. We want men to understand that, listen, this is a problem because men have done something to a woman, and we're gonna march with them arm in arm. And we want men to understand what we're going through and experiencing, and not to say, oh, it's just a woman's thing. No, it's a human thing. It's everyone's thing. And if we don't address it, because these things are happening not only to women, also to men as well. So we really have to address it.
So can we have the panel respond to that? What we want men to do, or what?
When I was in Australia working with a government organization about changing sexual violence, it was a campaign about consent. They aimed it at teenage boys, 13 and 14, and high schoolers, but mostly around 13, 14 years old. They said that older than that is a lost cause, that older than that, you can't change the way people think. They think what they think, but we got to get them while they're young. We've got to have these conversations while they're young. I don't personally believe it's a lost cause because I'm an optimist, glass half full. But I do think that it's about having these conversations young with young boys, with young women, with everybody. We need to talk about what that means to be in society with each other, to honor each other. What does it mean when we say dismantle the patriarchal system? What does that look like? I think what's really important is that we have to imagine what that looks like. If we can't picture it and see it, how are we ever going to create it? And this is something that's going to take, I'm not going to be around to see it. It's going to take multiple generations, but we can plant seeds and we can start thinking, and we can have all of us picturing and thinking and dreaming. What would it look like to change the society? And go back and look at First Nations people's practices and see what they did. How did they get along? How did it work? What did it mean to be in reciprocal relationship with the earth? When you look at Mother Earth as your relative, how do you look at your fellow human being next to you? How do you look at that animal that gave its life so that you can eat it and you don't leave anything behind? You take their bones and you make an instrument. You take the fur and you make an instrument. You know, you use it over and over again and you don't take more than you need. I also feel like, addressing your question when you were talking about, you know, women are going to be incubators and breeders, and what I saw was a document that was leaked from the Supreme Court about, it was basically talking about domestic births, to cut down adoptions and create more domestic births. And by that they meant white American births. When we talk about abortion rights and feminism, we cannot root it in, it cannot be white-centered. It has to include people of color, especially Black and brown Indigenous women, because that is the intersection. That is the most oppressed woman in the United States, is the Black trans woman. Mm-hmm. I told my kids stories of my daughter. I was having conversations on different times about women, how women have been treated, the inequality. I've told her about trans people and how they're treated. And then I told them about Black, my daughter is Black, how Black people are treated in this country. We're driving, and in the back of the car, my daughter says, "Wait, Mom," she's 10 years old, this happened when she was 9. She goes, "Wait a second, Ma." She goes, "So the Black trans women are the most oppressed women in America?" And I said, mm-hmm. She put it together just from the information that I gave her, and we need to center this. This is also a class, this is a financial issue. Rich white women in Texas, they're gonna find a way to get that abortion. They're gonna be okay. They're not gonna get arrested. It's young Mexican women who's getting arrested, young Black women who can't afford it, you know, can't afford to cross border lines, who don't have the resources to pay a doctor to do it, right? So we have to really center those people and allow them also to share their experiences and give us guidance and lead the way. I'm sorry I went on, but this is all speaking from the heart. So this is what's on my mind on how I can answer that question.
Anyone else? So we can continue this conversation in the lobby, but we are going to send us out with one final song from Maya Jupiter, and then we'll see you in the lobby where we will continue this conversation on rage. And I just thank you so much for being here. This is the first ALOUD program, I think, of the season. Thank you for having all of us. And please don't take my cats home. Just keep them here. I need them for the next shtick. But I am so happy to welcome back to the stage, as she sings us out, Maya Jupiter. There's that mic over there. Okay. Oh, is this one no good?
That one. That's the one. Thanks. All right. No, I don't need it. Thank you. I feel like I talked too much just now. Did I talk too much? Okay, thanks. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. You know that, right? What did I say? Did I say too much? All right, Madre Tierra. Let's do it. Mother Earth. What happens when Mother Earth is personified? I'm the healer, protector, the teacher of time, the nurturer, the fighter, the enemy of lies. Staying quiet, still I'm absorbing all stress until I explode. Then I am civil unrest. I'm the hope that was born in Malala's heart, the dream of Sandra, looking for a fresh start. I'm the will of Rayhan, I keep Island safe, the fireborn and Annie after surviving rape. I'm a mother, a daughter, a grand and a great responsibility to
empty placenta. I am fierce, ferocious, and furiously strong. I am Mother Earth, and this is my song. Madre Tierra, they try to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. Madre Tierra, so we keep on watering and pulling out the weeds. Madre Tierra, they try to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. Madre Tierra, so we keep on watering and pulling out the weeds. I'm relief, gazing in my newborn's eyes. Her cackles, her laughter, and all of her cries. I'm a guardian, a keeper of tradition of faith. A memory of truth, the tomorrow that awaits. I'm an aspen connected to 1,000 trees. Roots and leaves, fruits and seeds. I am fierce, ferocious, and furiously strong. I am Mother Earth, and this is your song.
La ceiba silencia, la lluvia acaricia la neblina densa. El quiero canta solo en la memoria, fragmentos de historia que no volverán.
Madre Tierra, they try to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. Madre Tierra, so we keep on watering and pulling out the weeds. Madre Tierra, they try to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. Madre Tierra, so we keep on watering and pulling out the weeds. Madre Tierra, Madre Tierra, Madre Tierra, Madre Tierra. On the moment to cheery, I became politicized like the second that Angela became radicalized. I'm the intention, sending child across the border. I am Diana's gun and I'm restoring all the order. I'm Jolene and I'm at the head of the struggle. I am Vanana, Emo Center is in trouble. I am fierce, ferocious, and fiercely strong. I am Mother Earth, and this is my song. On the moment to cheery, I became politicized like the second Angela became radicalized. I'm the intention, sending child across the border. I am Diana's gun and I'm restoring all the order. I'm Jolene and I'm at the head of the struggle. And Vanana, Emo Center is in trouble. I am fierce, ferocious, and fiercely strong. I am Mother Earth, and this is my song. Say her name. Say her name. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Dedicated to all the women and children who are losing their lives around the world right now. Free Palestine. Put your peace signs in the air. I want you to say peace on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Peace. Make some noise right now for Alex Gonzo Gonzalez on the drums, Dante Pascuso on the bass, and my musical director and producer, Mr. Quetzal Flores. Thank you all for having me. We'll see you outside. Thank you for coming along.
We'll see you in the lobby.